Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Guardians brought ALCS baseball back to Cleveland for the first time since they fell one game short of the World Series. And at least for one game, they didn't disappoint. And there was a pretty Thursday night football game, but the Broncos got a huge win. And are the Minnesota Vikings the best or worst team in the NFC North? Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Cleveland Guardians have life. First, it was a Christmas present from Big Christmas, a pinch hit, game-tying Jokenski Noel moonshot to tie the game at 5. Then in the bottom of the 10th, David Fry has the Guardians back in this ALCS, now a 2-1 series. Justin Latta from Locked On Guardians joins me now. And Justin, this felt like one of those games that can turn a playoff series.
It can, yeah. It could have turned a whole lot of ways. You know, you get your all-world closer beaten in the 8th inning, who's given up more runs the postseason than he had all season before that. And to be able to overcome that, if you can do that against this Yankees team, I think anything's possible. Like I said, some things are just unexplainable. And, if you can do that, you might be able to do the impossible. You might be able to just keep on when things don't seem possible.
It's so funny because when we were talking with our Locked On Dodgers host last night, he used the same phrasing. Sometimes there is just an unexplainable thing that can happen in the postseason. The Mets seem to be on that kind of run where they are doing things, of course, not the other night, but there seems to be a je ne sais quoi with some teams. The Guardians were not on some sort of charmed run in this postseason, but all it takes is one game sometimes. So what worked in game 3 that wasn't there in games 1 and 2, other than like 2 of the biggest home runs of the last 20 years for this franchise?
I mean, it was just the home runs, really. They did get an early lead. They did not get early leads in game 1 and 2. In fact, They didn't have a lead at all at any point. So they got Matthew Boyd through 5 innings. He gave them a great start. They weren't doing that in the first 2 games. The problem that continued for them, though, was they didn't hit with runners in scoring position. Late, the defense got kind of sloppy, gave up an extra run. Noel's home run actually could have been a walk-off home run had they played some better defense there in the 9th inning. But it was the home runs. You gotta get the big hit with runners on base. They weren't doing that. And the postseason for baseball, if you out-homer your team, you're going to win the game. And Cleveland's not a team that typically does that. So that's the difference for them. You got to hit home runs, especially if you're going to beat a team with home run power like the Yankees.
So does that leave you in a place where you go, okay, this is kind of fluky and we'll see. I don't know if it carries over, or, hey, we're back in this now. And there's now some momentum as you ride into game 4. What side of that do you lean on?
I'm personally not somebody who really believes in momentum in sports, maybe within the flow of a game, but not game to game. You know, there's the old adage in baseball that momentum is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. Cleveland's starting a pitcher that hasn't pitched a game in a month in game 4, but at least now game 4 is not their last game of the season, or it won't have to be the last game of the season. And this just, again, it might just be unexplainable. I think, David Fry hit a go-ahead home run in game 4 for the Guardians off a right-handed pitcher. He hasn't been good against righties. In all likelihood, he's going to get Tommy John surgery at the end of the year. And this guy just keeps showing up and hitting home runs. They're just, every time you think this team is dead in the water, they have come back. They were down to a 0-game lead. They were tied with the Royals in August for the division. Everybody felt like the season was teetering on the edge. Then they were down 2-1 against the Tigers and didn't score, in 22 straight innings, 20 straight innings. And they found life, and they found a way to beat the guy who's probably going to be the unanimous Cy Young winner in baseball in the AL this year. And then they just went out and tied the game off of the best non-Emmanuel Clase closer in baseball, and then went out and just beat another guy after that when they shouldn't have. So, I just think anything's possible at this point. I can't predict anything. We've tried to analyze so much on our show. matchups. This guy hits this pitch good. This guy's not a good matchup. And you know what? Most of the time we've had to crumple it up and throw out the window because the thing you think shouldn't happen happens. And that's the beauty of sports. That's the beauty of postseason baseball. And I'm glad the Guardians are on the good side of that on this one.
Yeah, quickly, I just wanted to add, Cleveland is such a great sports town. It is a fan base that is starved for these moments. The football team not going great right now. What kind of boost do you think they can give this team? Because the energy in the building for Game 3 was pretty off the charts, especially at the end.
Yeah, I heard something in that stadium in this game that I thought I would never hear. At one point in the game, they were chanting Hedgie for Austin Hedges, the team's backup catcher, who is about a 100 hitter, who's there for vibes and defense. And this was before Emmanuel Clase, blew the game. For the life of me, if you would have told me that the fans were going to be chanting his name, unless it was a parade down Euclid Avenue, East 9th, I wouldn't have believed it in a game. That's probably the most shocking thing this season. Maybe more shocking than the Guardians' 2 home runs there, honestly.
Stay up to date on the Cleveland Guardians all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Guardians on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Denver Broncos got a huge win in a game that was, frankly, pretty tough to watch. Before we get to that, we go around Locked On NFL to get you ready for the rest of Week 7. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Jets and Steelers ready to face off in the Who Has the Older Quarterback Bowl on Sunday night. Devonte Adams looms large.
By all accounts, it sounds like he's playing. Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets interim head coach, said he's going to be in the lineup. So, yeah, it's amazing the healing power. Ironic how suddenly that hamstring injury is healthy now. I think he'll be ready to play now. He has missed time, so we can speculate about how severe the hamstring injury was. It's been a couple weeks since he's played, so I think there's a question of how many snaps he'll get. I think he'll be able to get into the lineup pretty quickly because even though it's a new system, and even though Nathaniel Hackett's not the offensive coordinator anymore, he was demoted. This is a system that Nathaniel Hackett installed. They use the terminology Nathaniel Hackett uses, which is the system that Adams was part of in Green Bay. So I expect it. I don't think there are going to be any issues, getting him into the lineup. The question is how many snaps he'll go. He'll definitely play, though. And I think he'll be Rodgers' look. I think when he's in there, he's going to be the guy Rodgers looks to.
Meanwhile, the Eagles are ready for the Saquon Barkley revenge game against the Giants.
Although it's not like a Deshaun Jackson returns to Philly type of revenge game where Chip Kelly makes up the story to get rid of Deshaun after a career season. At the same time, it is still a revenge game, especially for Saquon, and for the other side, Joe Mara does not want to watch Saquon beat his football team. Again, no matter what the circumstance was, you do not want the former face of your team that joins a division rival especially to walk into your building and just obliterate you, especially when the owner wanted him back. I mean, just look at A.J. Brown's revenge game against the Tennessee Titans in 2022. It literally... the next day, that was a revenge game in its purest form. I've never seen a revenge game literally cost the GM or whoever made the decision to let that player go. I've never seen that game cost somebody their job. But that's what happened in 2022. A.J. Brown obliterated Tennessee in that blowout, and it literally got the Titans GM fired a day later.
The San Francisco 49ers are favorites over the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl rematch. Wait, are we serious?
Chris, are you a little surprised that over at FanDuel.com, the San Francisco 49ers are favored by 1.5 over the Kansas City Chiefs?
Maybe a little bit. The 49ers are a great team. To me, it's not overly surprising. I don't think that they are the team that their record suggests that they are. And in some ways, I think you could argue that the Chiefs aren't the record that their record suggests that they are. They haven't played great through 5 weeks. They're still trying to figure it out on the opposite side of the ball, and defensively they've been great, and I think that's the reason they continue to win.
Thursday night started off like a lot of Thursday night games, some sloppiness, some Keystone Cops moments, and then the Denver Broncos defense and run game took over. It ended in a 33-10 beatdown of Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Sarah Bettinger from Locked On Broncos joins me now. And Sarah, this is a Broncos team. I'm going to be honest, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out this season. They lock in now at 4-3. The defense looks really good. Bo Nix babysat this offense. Like, he didn't have to do much of anything in this one. And so what do you make of where they are right now through 7 games?
Well, you love to see the defense playing as well as they have, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 sacks on Spencer Rattler, knocked him out of the game late there. I don't know if he was hurt or what, but number of turnovers in this game, which was nice to see. A couple of other plays that could have easily been turnovers as well. You knew that they were going to take it personally the way they played in Los Angeles, giving up so many third downs to Justin Herbert in that Chargers offense, and they brought it against the Saints. They did exactly what you expect a great defense to do against a rookie quarterback like Spencer Rattler, and just make his life miserable out there.
Yeah, you can only play who you play, right? But Spencer Rattler, a group of receivers that I thought they might call you or I to start this game on Thursday.
Right.
But we've seen this team go up against real offenses before. This is who this team is. I think the question right now is, with the offense looking the way that it does, at least with Bo Nix, the training wheel's still on here a little bit. How far can this defense take them, which is kind of a weird thing to say about a Sean Payton team, but here we are.
Yeah, it is weird, especially because the Broncos, this is the team that gave up 70 points last year, right? So obviously it's been a big turnaround for them.
Defensive coordinator. It's not like they made a change there.
No, it's Vance Joseph still. So he's gone from being the most hated guy in the organization from the fan base to one of the most beloved. So it's really been fun to see that turnaround. How far can they take them? I mean, when you're playing defense like this, when you can rush the quarterback, Peter, I know you know this, like if you can get after the quarterback, you can be in pretty much every game. And the Broncos have every game. I mean, at least, in their losses, even those are all 1-score games as well. So I feel like this defense, especially with the running game now, 5 straight games over 100 yards rushing, including a dominating effort, like you mentioned, against the Saints here. If they can keep that going, man, Bo Nix is going to be able to kind of fail forward as the season progresses.
Okay, but you do still need to see the offense. You want to see some progress from Bo Nix. It was nice to see the running game, 35 for 225 and 2 touchdowns in this game. And you would think, at least over time, that would create some opportunities for this passing game. This is a banged up passing game right now. And so what do you need to see from this offense moving forward? Because, they're probably not going to compete, right, with Kansas City and Baltimore and Buffalo in the AFC this year, but they're building something. So what do you want to see from this offense moving forward?
I think especially from Bo Nix, you want to see him hit those gimmies. Like we saw that throw early in the game where he has 2 guys wide open for probably touchdowns for both guys and hits neither of them, throws it right in between both of them. And, the near interception to Tyrann Mathieu, when you're sprinting out to your left, you're already trying to throw across your body, just throw the ball away. So I think it's generally just either the decision making or, man, when you set your feet, you're throwing accurate footballs. So do that on those plays where your guys are wide open. Set your feet and get a base and things out there. And I mean, over time, you hope that those types of things can be corrected and they're not fatal flaws, right? So I think that's what you want to see from Bo, is really do the easy things well over the course of the rest of the season and make that progress that Sean Payton certainly believes you can make.
Where do you think the disconnect is between some of the flashes we saw from a player like Marvin Mims Jr. last year and ultimately the role that he has had in this offense? And you're shaking your head because this has been a bugaboo for Broncos fans, for fantasy football analysts. They're going, why is this guy not getting more opportunities?
I don't get it. I honestly don't. I tweeted out during the game that I feel like Marvin Mims plays, he's playing on rookie mode when he's a punt returner because he's just awesome when he's back there returning punts. And then he's playing on all Madden when he's out there on offense. It's like he can't do anything quite right. We saw it on the 2-point conversion attempt last week. We've seen a number of dropped passes this season. It's weird. It doesn't make sense. And we kind of talked about this in training camp. Like he was non-existent in training camp. Nobody was talking about him. He wasn't making plays. So this was a concern for everybody dating back to training camp. That's like now manifesting. It's very, very concerning, Peter. I'm glad to see Troy Franklin stepping up on the other side of that, but you want to see Marvin get going because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands.
Stay up to date on the Denver Broncos all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Broncos on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Minnesota Vikings are quite polarizing in the NFC North portrait. Hey, NFL fans, you can get the NFL season kicked into high gear on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And you can take aim at week 7 in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills just got Josh Allen a new weapon, and already odds makers love them. FanDuel has the Bills favored by 8.5 over the Titans on Sunday. Oddly enough, the Bills total only 25.5. I kind of like the over there, though this Titans defense underrated. So what are you waiting for? That's FanDuel.com to get started. The NFC North is playing like the best division in football right now, and it isn't particularly close. All 4 teams in the division are the top 4 teams in the NFL in point differential. With that, the debate over which is the top has gotten heated. The Madman Tyler Rowland and Michelle Majuk differ wildly on where the Minnesota Vikings rank.
So people aren't going to like this because I'm going to have the Vikings 4th. There's lots of reasons for it. We can dig into it after I get through this, but 4 is going to be the Vikings. 3 will be the Bears, right? I still need to see more from Caleb Williams. That defense is great, but want to see more consistency there. 2 is the Packers. Jordan Love is playing well, but still scary. That defense is still very beatable. And then 1 is the Lions, and I would feel really good about them at 1 if Aiden Hutchinson didn't suffer that brutal injury that's going to keep him out the whole year. But I still, even with that injury, I'm going to keep him at 1.
Wow. The Vikings at number 4. Well, Michelle, I got to tell you, I disagree because my ranking is Vikings at number 1, and I feel even more confident about that now because of the Aiden Hutchinson injury. I would go Packers number 2. I would go Lions number 3 because of what I think that injury does to their defense, and then I would put the Bears at number 4. The Vikings, again, I know that Sam Darnold has played well, but not great. I think that, he's not like an MVP candidate like some people try to make out. I don't think that's fair. They're more a good complementary football team. The Packers, I think, are just going to start to get better on the defensive side of the ball. That pass rush can't be as bad as it's been for the beginning of the season. I just think Aiden Hutchinson is so important to what the Lions do. I don't trust the rest of their pass rush. I know Aleem McNeil got the new deal this week and everything, but I do not think that they're going to have anywhere close to a replacement for Aiden Hutchinson. And with how important I value pass rush when it comes to football discussions, the Lions offense is going to be good. But with that loss to Aiden Hutchinson, I think it hurts them so much. So I dropped them to 3 for that, expecting the Packers to play better. And then I put the Bears at 4 for the same reason you have them at 3. I think they're a good team. I think they're a rising team, but I simply don't trust them as much when they play better teams. So it'll be fun to watch those teams play, but interesting that we're so divided on the Vikings and then the Lions, of course.
I don't think the Vikings are the worst team in the NFC North, but I don't think they're the best either. They played the best, and they deserve that credit. I can't take that away from them. They have played the best. They have also played in a lot of ways that are, to me, unsustainable. We saw last year the Brian Flores defense. They found answers around the NFL. Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur, there were guys at the end of the year that had good answers. We saw Matt LaFleur in the second half against the Minnesota Vikings. We saw the bad version of Sam Darnold in London creep up, missing throws, missing high, turning the ball over, overly aggressive reads. Right now, the turnover-worthy play rate has vastly outpaced the actual turnovers. That is going to close down. These turnover-worthy plays are going to turn into interceptions. They're going to turn into fumbles. And they're not as talented as the Lions. They're not as talented as the Packers. They might not be as talented as the Bears. Now, I think they're better than the Bears. I think they're better coached than the Bears. But I think the offense that the Lions and the Packers have in the playoffs and by the end of the season will put them ahead of the Vikings in the way that we think of quality. Maybe not in rankings. Maybe this is a Vikings team that goes and wins 13 games. But by the end of the season, if there were a playoff game between the Vikings and the Packers or the Vikings and the Lions, we'd be taking those other teams. It is a story that if you wrote it, Hollywood would say it's too far-fetched. An Olympic snowboarder is wanted for cocaine distribution and murder. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and extradition of Ryan James Wedding, a Canadian citizen who is living in Mexico and is considered a fugitive. The 43-year-old Wedding is charged in the United States with running a criminal enterprise, murder, conspiring to distribute cocaine, and other crimes. This, according to U.S. prosecutors. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, who will win the Super Bowl rematch? And if it's the 49ers, they'll probably rather have the Super Bowl. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.